Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 2nd of March of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to discuss the most important, probably the most important statement that was made by the President of the United States of America. The President Trump stated, well, we intended 4 to 5 weeks, it won't be difficult. So the President of the United States of America is trying to tell us that the limited military operation against Iran will last just 4 or 5 weeks. And of course, when talking about an updates that we are receiving from the Middle East, it's very difficult to understand what exactly the President of the United States of America is talking about. We see lots of explosions, we can see lots of attacks, and we can see a total conflict between Iran and the coalition. And obviously, according to all these updates, we understand that most likely the conflict will last more. The conflict will last months or maybe even years or maybe even tens of years since these days. But at the same time, you need to understand that the President of the United States of America didn't lie when he said that he thinks and he believes that the conflict will last just 4 or 5 weeks. Because we need to understand the real task and the real target of this conflict, of this military operation from the United States of America. Of course, the most important task is to change the regime and to change the leader of Iran. And I would like to remind you that according to information we have, this happened yesterday. As a result of attack, the leader of Iran died. He was attacked in his residence by bombs, and nothing left from that area that was attacked by the coalition forces. Another and the second task of the United States of America, of course, to destroy nuclear infrastructure of Iran and, of course, ballistic capabilities and ballistic infrastructure of Iran as well. And telling the truth, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos of how the coalition of the United States of America and Israel were attacking military objects of Iran through the entire territory of the state, and it seems that the United States of America sooner or later will be able to achieve this goal as well. But at the same time, we understand that it's impossible that the conflict would finish within 5 weeks or something like this. And now we need to understand the third and probably the most important task and the most important goal of this conflict between the coalition of the United States of America and Israel and Iran. And the most important goal of this conflict is to drag as many as possible states into this conflict. You know that when the conflict started, the United States of America and Israel attacked a lot of objects of military objects and objects of nuclear infrastructure through Iran, and the Iranians were striking back. But when talking about the Iranians, they didn't attack the United States of America. We're talking about the territory, and we see that the Iranians haven't managed to deal significant damage to Israel, but we saw that the Iranians managed to deal significant damage to the Persian Gulf states. During the previous days, lots of explosions and lots of damage were dealt to the state like United Arab Emirates. We have a lot of videos of explosions and so on. During the previous days, the Iranians managed to deal significant damage to Qatar. And for example, today the Qatarian authorities stated that Qatar Energy stops LNG production after attacks on Ras Laffan Messaidi facilities. Furthermore, we had lots of very interesting reports that, for example, Qatari foreign minister spokesperson in an interview with CNN stated Iran must pay a price for its blatant attacks. Another important thing, Qatar's defense minister says Iran targeted a power plant and facility and its main LNG production site. So as you can see, Qatar, as you can see, and the United Arab Emirates received significant damage from the Iranians. The same story is about the state of Bahrain. Lots of videos, lots of articles related on the matter of destructions, lots of videos with fire. So these states are suffering huge losses with these attacks from the Iranian side. And the same thing, of course, about the state of Kuwait. We have lots of videos, pictures of explosions. But when talking about Kuwait, we have very interesting update about 3 US aircrafts that were damaged as a result of friendly fire, but we will discuss this in a minute. And of course, the most important thing is maybe not even these states itself, but the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, because this territory is blocked and these countries are not able to sell oil through the world because the Iranians are attacking tankers. For example, this video was published today. Here we can see a tanker that was damaged as a result of the Iranian attack. For example, this is another tanker that was suffering already huge problems. As we can see, the crew was evacuating. So the tankers are under attack from the Iranian side, and we see that more and more countries are dragging into this conflict. Furthermore, based on these results, based on the problems with LNG, we start receiving reports that the European market is collapsing on this matter. For example, today we had a report that Europe gas prices surged 50% after Qatari LNG production halts. Another important thing, European natural gas prices could more than double if shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is blocked for months, Goldman Sachs warns. So this is the situation, and today the Europeans, more precisely the leaders of France, Germany and the United Kingdom stated that they may join this coalition and to begin bombing and attacking Iran as well. European countries may take necessary and proportionate defensive actions to eliminate Iran's ability to launch missiles and drones, according to a joint statement. So what I'm trying to tell you, we need to understand that within the next 5 weeks, when the United States of America presence in this area and supports attacks, and not just supports, but is the main side that attacks the infrastructure of Iran, we'll see that almost every single state from this region would be dragged into this conflict. And when it happens, most likely the United States of America will quit the conflict, and the United States of America will leave all these states like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan, like Oman, like United Arab Emirates, like Qatar, like Kuwait, to fight with Iranians one by one, one-on-one. And of course, the United States of America will start selling lots of weapons to these states to support them in their war with Iran and with the Iranians. So if you ask my opinion, I see something like this. Because once again, the main goals that the United States of America had at the beginning of this, let's say, limited military operation were already achieved by the United States of America or about to be achieved. So that's why there is just one thing left: to drag as many as possible states into this conflict and then to quit the conflict itself. Yes, of course, the United States of America lost lots of bases, lots of assets through the Middle East, but telling the truth, they can earn much more money on this conflict if they will be outside this conflict, and only if they will sell weapons to this area. And of course, the Russian Federation and China. When talking about China, today we see that the Minister of Foreign Affairs and China itself stated that they support Iran in safeguarding its sovereignty, security and territorial integrity. As for the Russian Federation, we have completely different picture, because from one side the Russians support Iran, but from the other side we know that the Russians shares of Russian oil and gas companies are rising amidst US and Israeli attacks on Iran, and you know that there are very high chances that the sanctions on Russia would be lifted even from the European Union, because where the European Union can get and can borrow gas or can buy gas, only Russia can supply the Europeans and to replace the states of the Middle East in this process and in this matter. But when talking about this situation, yesterday we received the report that that Belgium and France arrested another tanker, another ship, another vessel to the north of France and Belgium. And according to information we have, these authorities of France and Belgium are saying that this tanker belongs to the, let's say, shadow fleet of the Russian Federation, so which means that it seems that the European countries are not going to normalize the relations with Russia. Furthermore, today the president of France made one of the most important statements. He said that French President Emmanuel Macron has stated that France will increase its nuclear stockpile for the first time in decades. I have ordered that we increase the number of nuclear warheads in our arsenal. We will no longer communicate on the figures regarding our nuclear arsenal. So this is a very important statement during the conflict in the Middle East, and during the statements from the Russian side that France and the United Kingdom are going to provide Ukrainians with nuclear weapons. Now let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. The Ukrainians are saying, more precisely the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is saying that the Russians are planning to launch a massive missile on a combined attack during the upcoming nights, maybe during the next 48 hours. The Russians once again will try to attack energy infrastructure of Ukraine, and it seems that the Russians most likely will do this. Because during the previous days we received lots of updates that missiles are currently heading just towards the Middle East with the purpose to protect the US assets in this area. And furthermore, I would like to remind you the words that were made by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. He said that we have asked Ukrainians to help our Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones, and most likely we will also bring in experts from Ukraine who, together with our specialists, will help our Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones that attack them. So this is a very important statement, because we need to understand that Ukraine is in war, and of course every single specialist of air defense forces is probably has no price, so they're priceless. And of course Ukraine will never give these specialists, let's say, in the direction and to, let's say, the Gulf region, the Persian Gulf region, because they need the Ukraine needs these specialists here. And furthermore, the Russians are going to attack Ukraine in coming days. So what exactly the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was talking about is that most likely these specialists that the United Kingdom is going to ask to be transferred from Ukraine to the Middle East are most likely the specialists of probably private military campaigns who are on the territory of Ukraine, is helping Ukraine to fight with Russian missiles and drones, which means that there are probably a lot of soldiers and volunteers or soldiers of these PMCs on the territory of Ukraine, and most likely in coming days they will be forced to leave Ukraine and they will be transferred in the Middle East, which means that most likely in coming days the air defense of Ukraine will weaken significantly, and the Russians of course will try to test this the new, let's say, level of air defense forces of the armed forces of Ukraine to understand what is going to happen. So that is why we believe that in coming days and weeks we'll see lots of strikes from the Russian side, and the Russians will try to understand whether they are able to destroy the energy infrastructure of Ukraine completely or not. But it seems that the Russians most likely will be able to significantly damage in comparison with previous attacks. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians launched a massive drone attack in the southern direction. The Ukrainians were attacking the southern regions of the Russian Federation, and according to information we have, lots of explosions were recorded on the territory of the city of Novorossiysk. And this is the video from the city. As we can see, as a result of attack, something was damaged. So as of now, very difficult to say what exactly the Ukrainians managed to damage, but the Russians are saying that overnight they managed to destroy 172 drones of the armed forces of Ukraine that were flying in the direction of the southern regions. As for the line of combat contact, during the previous 24 hours we received lots of very important changes and updates. And first let's talk about the most important direction. This is the Leman direction, or the Sloviansk direction. As you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly. This is the situation by the end of the 28th of February of 2026. This is the end of the 1st of March of 2026, and this is the end of the 2nd of March of 2026. As you can see, the Russians improved their position significantly both in the Eastern Slavian direction and the Northeastern Slavian direction. Let's discuss the Eastern Slavian direction. The Russians, it seems, are about to finish the battle for the settlement of Fyodorovka Druga, and this is the last settlement through the second defense layer of the city of Sloviansk from the southeast. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates, and the information that the Russians improved their positions in this area was confirmed both by neutral mappers and by pro-Ukrainian sources. Almost every single mapper expanded either the Russian-controlled territory or the gray zone, which means that the Russians continue infiltration process and continue taking more and more parts of the settlement of Fyodorovka Druga under complete control. Another important area is the settlement of Riznikivka. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that as a result of clashes, the armed force of the Russian Federation managed to establish complete control over this settlement. And I would like to remind you that the chief of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the chief of the general staff of the armed forces of the Russian Federation on the 16th of February of 2026 stated that the Russians were about to finish the battle for the settlement, and as you can see, almost 2 weeks passed since that announcement, and the Russians finished the battle for this territory, and the Russians approached the next village in this area, the village of Kalinki, which is the most fortified territory through the entire Eastern Slavian direction. As you can see, there are lots of strongholds, lots of trenches, lots of positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, and obviously it will take maybe a month or even 2 months before the Russians are able to break through this defense layer and to establish complete control over this territory and to begin advancing further in the western direction towards the villages of Alexandrovka and Nikolaevka. So the battle, the most important battle of the Eastern Slavian defense has begun. Another important area is the northern direction. The Russians, as you can see, managed to improve their positions in this region as well. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, on the 27th of February, pro-Russian sources published this video where we can see the Russian flag that was raised in the central part of the settlement. And based on this video, on the 28th of February, several mappers adjusted their maps showing this territory under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And by the end of the 2nd of March, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed that the Russians, and more precisely the units of the Group of Forces West, managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Drobyshevo. Furthermore, we have a video from the northern part of the city of Leman, how Russians were attacked by Ukraine's drones right exactly at this point. So now we see that it seems that the defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine have collapsed in the north, to the north and northwest from the city of Leman, and it seems that in coming days the Russians will try to attack in this direction with the purpose to establish complete control over the fields and these forests to the west of the city of Leman. This will allow the Russians to cut the main logistic lines that Ukrainians still have that support and supply the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of the city of Leman itself. So this is the operation that the Russians are going to carry out in coming days with the purpose to finish the battle for this bank of the river of Seversky Donetsk. So it seems that the days for the city of Leman are numbered right now. Now let's move further and let's talk about the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region. During the previous 24 hours, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation also stated that the Russians managed to capture the settlement of Krugle. Based on this report, we have adjusted the map. So as we can see, the Russians are keeping advancing in the northeastern part of Kharkiv region, and most likely the Russians in coming days will continue. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates and lots of videos of how Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through this territory. The Russians are keeping advancing, and the Russians are keeping their offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov from the west and from the east. The Russians improved their positions in the east to the settlements. So as you can see, these are the changes on the ground, and the Russians improved their positions positions to the east of the city of Orekhov. We're talking about the settlement of Rizdvanka. Today, more and more sources confirm that the Russians, indeed, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the territory, and that now the main clashes, are taking place for 3 villages: the village of Vozdvizhevka, Verkhnya Tersa, and the settlement of Gulyai-Polska. So this is the next defense layer that the Russians are trying to break through. If this line of defense falls, then the days of Orekhov would be numbered. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.